Welcome back to the Word Walk. We've been walking through the life of Abraham for weeks now. If you've been paying attention, you know that this journey hasn't been a straight line. Genesis 18 gave us the beautiful promise delivered at Abraham's tent. The Lord Himself showing up to announce that Isaac was coming. Genesis 19 took us to the judgment on Sodom while Abraham stood in the gap, interceding for the wicked. Now we arrive at Genesis 21. The promise finally arrives. Isaac is born. The wait is over. But here's what you need to understand right from the start. The arrival of the promise doesn't mean all your problems disappear. Sometimes the fulfillment of what God promised creates new tensions you never saw coming. This chapter is about the cost of covenant, election and exclusion, God's sovereignty in choosing, His mercy extending beyond the chosen. And it's messy. It's painful. It's exactly the kind of thing we'd edit out of the Bible if we were writing it. But we didn't write it. God did. He left it in there for a reason. Let's look at what the text says. Verse 1. The Lord visited Sarah as He had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as He had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the time of which God had spoken to him. Did you catch that? 3 times in 2 verses, the text hammers home the same point. God did what He said, as He had promised, at the time of which God had spoken. Moses is making sure we understand that this is divine intervention, pure and simple. The word translated visited for us is the same word used when God delivered Israel from Egypt, when He ended Ruth's famine, when He gave Hannah a son. It means God stepped into the situation with power. Sarah is 90 years old. Abraham is 100. Now, when Isaac is born, Sarah names him Laughter. The laughter has changed though. Back in Genesis 17, Abraham laughed in disbelief when God told him he'd have a son. In Genesis 18, Sarah laughed in cynicism when she overheard the promise. Now Sarah says, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. We've gone from mockery to worship, from cynicism to celebration. That's what God does when He keeps His promises. Now, as we continue, Abraham obeys. He names the boy Isaac like God told him. He circumcises him on the 8th day. They sign the covenant. He throws a weaning fest when Isaac is about 3 years old. These are acts of obedience to commands God already gave. Abraham is saying with his actions, I believe this is the son of promise. This is the one who all nations will be blessed. But here's the thing. The arrival of the promise doesn't mean smooth sailing. In fact, it's about to create the very conflict Abraham had been dreading. Let's look at what happens next. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, laughing. The word laughing is the same root as Isaac's name. It's loaded with meaning. The context suggests that this wasn't innocent play. Ishmael was mocking Isaac, undermining his position as the son of promise. Some see it as, harmless sibling rivalry. The text points to something a little bit darker, contempt for the covenant child. At least that's what some commentators think. But notice, Sarah won't even say Ishmael's name. The son of this slave woman. That's how she puts it. She's dehumanizing him, protecting her own. And she demands, quote, cast out this slave woman and her son. For the son of the slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. All right, let's be honest about Sarah's motives. Yes, she understands that Isaac is the covenant son. God made that very clear. But she's also protecting Isaac's inheritance. As the firstborn, Ishmael would be entitled to a double portion. Sarah is safeguarding power and privilege. Her conclusion is right. God confirms it later, but her motives are mixed. And Abraham, listen to this. The matter was very displeasing in Abraham's sight because of his son. This is his son too. He loves Ishmael. You can see it in Genesis 17 by reading verse 18, when Abraham cries out, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before you." This is a father being told to send his son away forever. But God, he steps in. He tells Abraham, "Be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever says to you, do as she tells you. For through Isaac shall your offspring be named." Sarah's demand, even with mixed motives, aligns with God's sovereign plan. God is narrowing the covenant is what he's doing. Isaac is chosen. Ishmael is passed over. That narrowing creates separation that will echo for generations. But watch what God says next. Quote, "And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring." God has a plan for Ishmael too. A different plan, but a plan. It's outside the covenant. Providence extends beyond election is the whole thing we got to understand. Paul picks up this in Galatians chapter 4, verse 29, when he says, "The son born according to the flesh persecuted the one born according to the Spirit." The flesh always opposes a promise. It's been that way from the beginning. So what happened to Hagar and Ishmael now? Does God just cast them aside? Well, here's what happens. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. Early in the morning, minimal provisions, enough possibly maybe a day's journey. Abraham is complying with God's command. But this is brutal. So Hagar wanders in the wilderness of Beersheba. The water runs out. She puts Ishmael under a bush because she can't bear to watch him die. And then this. "And God heard the voice of the boy. And the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, 'What troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God heard the voice of the boy where he is.'" Quote, God heard. That's what Ishmael's name means. The boy's very name is the promise. God hasn't forgotten him. God hasn't abandoned him. Look at what happens next. God opens Hagar's eyes and she sees a well of water. Provision, life, hope. And then we read this. "And God was with the boy, and he grew up." What happens to Ishmael? Ishmael becomes the father of 12 sons, ancestors of some of the Arab nations. God has purposes for Hagar and Ishmael beyond the covenant. And here's what's interesting. Many enjoy God's providence who are strangers to his covenant. God provides for Ishmael, protects him, prospers him in the wilderness. He becomes an archer. He grows up in the wilderness of Paran. Hagar gets him a wife from Egypt. There's a difference between God being with someone in providence and God being with someone in covenant. Ishmael had one. Isaac had both. So where does that leave us now? Genesis 21 sets the stage for Genesis 22. After all this waiting, all this conflict, all this narrowing of the promise down to Isaac alone. God is going to ask Abraham to sacrifice him. The son of promise will be laid on an altar. Abraham will have to decide whether God is trustworthy even when everything looks like it's falling apart. Some of you have been waiting for something God promised. A breakthrough in your marriage, a prodigal son to come home, a calling to be fulfilled. Abraham and Sarah waited 25 years. Your waiting isn't wasted. God is working even when you can't see it. But when the promise arrives, maybe expect new tensions you never saw coming. Isaac's birth didn't end Abraham's trials. It created new ones. Your promises have consequences that ripple through generations. Abraham's decision to go into Hagar created a family conflict that still echoes today. You know what I'm talking about. And some of you are living with the consequences of compromises you've made years ago. God's grace is sufficient, even for the consequences of your sin. But don't you dare minimize the cost. Repent. Own it. Trust that God can bring good even out of your worst decisions. Now here's what we know that Abraham didn't know yet. God will provide a substitute, a ram in the thicket, a son who dies so Isaac can live. And that points us forward to another son. That's right, I'm talking about Jesus, the ultimate seed of Abraham, the one to whom all nations are blessed. Jesus is the Isaac who wasn't spared. He's a son who was actually sacrificed. God provided no substitute for Jesus. Heaven stayed silent as he drank the cup of wrath to the bottom, so that we, Jew and Gentile, slave and free, Isaac and Ishmael, could be bought into the covenant by his blood alone. That's the gospel. That's why we can read Genesis 21 without despair. The painful separation of Isaac and Ishmael points us forward to the glorious inclusion of all who believe in Jesus. So if you've been waiting on a promise, keep on waiting. God is faithful. And if you're living with the consequences of compromise, repent. Trust that God's grace is sufficient. And if you're outside the covenant, that door is open. Come to Jesus, the seed of Abraham, the son of promise, the substitute sacrifice, and be saved. I'm Ty. You've been listening to The Word Walk. If you found this helpful or you think someone needs to hear it, share the Spotify link or the YouTube link. You can reach me on the socials, The Word Walk, or email me, info@thewordwalk.com. Until next week, we cover Genesis 22. May God bless your steps, wherever you go.
Water you turned into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you, none like you. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you, none like you. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you, none like you. Our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Our God. God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? What could stand against?